Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another brilliant podcast, if I can say so myself, called The Scandalous Delights. Because what if, well, it seems like magic and miracles are a bit of scandalous. Like I was talking to my brother the other day, and he used to do this thing about uh, waking me up in the morning. He used to sign me up for like these. I was a bit athletic, so he would sign me up for all these races and cross country runs, and then he would put an alarm, wake me up, and say, "Run, go." And I would run them. And I remember during practicing certain parts of the run, but I don't remember like in the final running all the way. And then I would come first. Like it was, I started running and then I reached the end point and voila, I'm the one who's coming first. And it's all a days, I get a trophy handed. And I still wonder about that. Like, what is that? Like, I don't remember running as much or getting tired as much. So what, like how the other runners would. And I would be wondering what that is. Still, I attended a nine Chinese class and I was like, oh, that makes sense. So I was still trying to tell that to my brother the other day that, I was too lazy to run all the way. But you're not going to believe me. I just teleported, I think. So, and he's like, yeah, whatever. I was like, listen, magic exists for those and shows up for those who know it exists. So I wanted to start open these conversations where people can start acknowledging and we all can start acknowledging the magic, the miracle, the miraculous, that how normal it is, how much it's there, how much it's available. And today we have Wesley Pullen on, all the way from South Africa. He is lover of all things money and consciousness. Yay! I love it. And he is a joy of business, all in one sentence, and Access Consciousness Certified Facilitator. So, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
I am so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here on your Scandalous Delights podcast.
Yay! Um, I have had the privilege to work with you and create with you on different projects, and but I was just thinking about it. And I was like, I don't know much, like in terms of stories, like the stories sort of that we, in the choices we've made that brought us here. And I would love to know more about that. So I'm glad you said yes to coming on onto this podcast. So
Me,
what is, where would you like to go with this conversation? I know you were talking about gratitude.
yeah, well, okay. Well, gratitude is an element of this bigger thing that we talk about all the time, consciousness, right? And I have been asking a lot lately to start being more gratitude. And I guess like if you're listening to this and the whole concept of consciousness is kind of new to you, gratitude is an energy of creation. And what does that mean? It's like we have the energy of judgment, which destroys, and the energy of gratitude, which creates. So one thing that I've been looking at like quite in detail in my life lately is where I go to judgment as a default instead of going to gratitude. And now
Wait a
that sounds
minute.
really
What do you mean? Yeah, what do you mean by gratitude as a judgment?
that sounds really complicated. Or even put it in another terms, going to say, sorry, I saw something outside that distracted me. Um, Going to like problem instead of possibility, right? And that's one thing that you told me about before we recorded the show is you want to have conversations with people about possibilities because the general conversation is about problems. Anyways, I'm steering off track now. I want to talk about going to
You're
gratitude
good.
instead of problems. So here's an example of how I put that in play in my life is I woke up this morning and the first thing I do when I wake up generally is obviously go to the bathroom and then make a cup of coffee because that's just like the best thing ever in the morning is that fresh cup of coffee. And I have like in our house we drink like ground beans, like freshly ground beans and stuff like that. And I woke up and there was no ground coffee. And the first thing I went to was like, oh, that's so fucking annoying. Like, why isn't there ground? Like going to all these problems instead of going to like the gratitude of, wow, I get to grind this coffee now and smell the freshness of the beans and receive that beautiful sound of it going, but that was just another little like bump in the road for me of noticing where I go to problems instead of possibilities. Now, there also was no fucking milk. So there was like one thing after the other this morning, which I could have easily called a problem. So off I go in my car and I drive to this little local coffee shop where I buy my milk. And I buy 2 little things of milk and I buy a freshly made cappuccino there as well, in a little takeaway cup. And then I drive home and I choose to drive home along the beach because I live on the beach, super lucky. And I was like, wow, I went to all these problems this morning when I could have asked another question and gone, what's available here? Even just that, like, what's available here? What gift is this? Even though it's just coffee. But I drove home and I saw the beach and I saw this coffee in my hand and I was like, wow, how the fuck did I get so lucky? And I went to all these problems instead of what else is possible here? And like, hey, universe, what gifts are available? So
I love that.
Yeah.
It looks like you were asking what else is possible.
Exactly. Although I wasn't, I was like going into like all this like I need my morning coffee and oh this is a problem and why aren't there any beans and why is there not any milk? So like what is a problem in your life that is actually a gift and a possibility waiting to be acknowledged and waiting to be touched and waiting to be received?
I love that. I do. Yes. Yes. And when you were saying that, when you were talking about that story as well, I remember that we like the first time I got to start like creating with you, it was like you had started like working on the emails that went out for this business, like Christopher's business, and you would look at the energy of it. And I used to find that really amazing because I saw the emails that were going in earlier, like the sense of it, and the new ones, and like I didn't even have to read them most of the times, but I could access the energy of what it is and what's it inviting. Like it was palpable, it was fun. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. Is it just me who's receiving, like who can gauge it or what's going on? And then I started having like, so we're talking about a business that sends out email, but it also goes out to many, many different languages. But we were at that point sending it in English, and a lot of other Japanese and other Asian translators and other translators actually got in touch with me and said, hey, thank you for the emails that you guys are sending out now, because it makes our job in talking to the people in their countries, in their languages, far easier, because they get, like, they can see the action and they can see the space of that. So I'm really grateful, because that was like something that I was looking for. Like, what is that, being so present with something like you're talking about? Like, you just became present with everything that is available for you around you. And you realize, oh, I live next to a beach. Good choice. So what could you speak a bit about that? Because I know you sometimes it's difficult for us to talk about something that we're already being, but I would love for you to, like, actually, if you could put it in some words for people to get a sense of what that would be, like the energy of it. And
Are you saying
being
like
grateful?
The presence and with something?
Yeah, that you be.
So I would say, well, it's also really hard to speak to, like you said, but it's almost like it's really just taking a pause. For me, it's taking a pause because the autopilot is problems. And when you take a pause and decide to really look at something, not just be like, okay, this is what it is, but really look at something like that story with the coffee today. Like I had the takeaway cup in my hand and the view of the ocean and stopped and really looked at it and was like, oh my fuck, this is such a gift.
Yeah.
When you stop, pause, relax, and really look at something. What is this that I completely thought it was something else? Like even
Mm.
looking at different projects that you're working on, like what is actually going on here? Because when you truly look at something, you get all the awareness of what's required to change it. And you also get the awareness of how it can
Mm.
be different, how it can be greater. But if you just carry on doing things the way that you've always done them, especially when you catch yourself saying, this is the way I've always done this, that's when you're fucked.
True.
Because
True.
you, like, what if you were constantly looking at all the time, what else is possible with this? How can this be greater? How can I be greater than I was yesterday?
Yeah. And like you said, like gratitude is such a key to be able to
Yeah.
even move in that direction. Otherwise, there's no movement without that space of gratitude. So what is it that okay. So what is the one story that you could tell us that is absolutely scandalous, out of this world,
Scandalous or out of this world.
yet delightful,
Sorry?
yet delightful?
Scandalous or delightful? Wow. I don't even know what kind of story. Like I have so many experiences in my life. Let's narrow it down a bit. Let's
Okay,
narrow it down a bit for me.
cool. Um, you were going to tell me a story about like gratitude with like your parents,
With my
with like how our parents asked us to be grateful.
Oh, okay. So yeah, when we grow up, our parents tell us you need to be grateful for what you have. And then you come along to like an access class and we speak about gratitude. And you've grown up your whole life thinking that you need to be grateful for what you have is something completely
Yeah.
different. That's not the energy of gratitude. That's the energy of settling for what you have. So I just want to put it super clear to you is who taught you about gratitude and how can you unlearn that? because
True.
because maybe gratitude is not what you think it is. Gratitude could be going outside and putting your hands right into the soil and feeling every single little piece of dirt on you and being just like, oh, so grateful. Not like, oh, you better eat all your food on your plate because you have so much to be grateful for. That's not gratitude. So if that was a little
That
story
never
I could
happened
tell
to
you
me.
about gratitude, and maybe it's not putting your hands in the dirt, maybe it's something else. But
Oh my
what if,
goodness. That yes. Yes. I just want to add like to your story because I spent most of my childhood on the table because because I was served the amount of breakfast I was supposed to eat, and then I would
yeah,
be eating till lunchtime, and then would be lunchtime. There was a joke that Eena spent the whole time on the dining table trying to finish her meal, but no one's asking what do you want, like what how much. It's exactly that grateful, which is so interesting. That is absolutely scandalous, I must say. Um, for yeah, look at like the amount of things that I'm like getting a flashback of all the things that you choose, thinking that if you're not choosing that, then you're not grateful. Um, like if like having you have the food, if you're not having it, have the food that's given to you, that if you're not having it to the last morsel, then you're not grateful, which is
exactly.
not true.
Exactly. So what lies have you been told
Right?
about gratitude?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or that if you're asking for more, so that's one scenario. Oh my goodness, I think we're unveiling something
Yeah,
here.
exactly. So
And
that
then if
like
you're asking for more, then you're not grateful for what you have.
exactly. So we're taught number one that if you don't finish all the food on your plate, you're not grateful. And you also can't be grateful and ask for more. When in actual fact, the key to having and receiving more is being grateful for what you currently have.
Yep,
And grateful
exactly.
that you have the gift to receive. And grateful that you can ask for more. Like gratitude
Yep.
and grateful kind of aren't really the same thing. Even though they're the same thing, they're kind of not. Being grateful and having gratitude get the different energies.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And it's like that sense that you get, like what you were talking about, like putting your hands in the sand and like being grateful. But it's like it's being that for even what you've decided is shitty and ugly. It's like being that for everything.
Yeah, and even looking at like being grateful for what you've created. Look at your life. You may have decided you're not you specifically, I mean like whoever's listening. Look at
I
how fucked up have you decided you are. Let's just put it into like an example with money. Have you created a lot of debt? Have you created a lot of money? Have you created not so much money and not so much debt? Like what have you created with money right now? Really look at it. Is it a lot of debt? Well, maybe look at it and say, okay, wow, I've created a lot of debt. Fucking A. I created this.
yeah,
Be grateful for you. Seriously.
yeah,
Like you created this. If you can create it, you can also uncreate it and create something different and choose again. But if you're judging what
yep,
you've created, you'll never change it. Because judgment creates this like huge solidity. But when
yeah,
there's gratitude, there's like this flow.
yep. And that seems to be like the, like you mentioned, the autopilot where you need to go, like as if like if we judge ourselves enough, then we can go
Yeah.
get across it, but you never seem to ever go across, like change it. So what would be the key ways that people could tap into, like quickly snap into gratitude when,
Ask.
let's say, the shit seems to be hitting the ceiling, or
So
it looks like that?
yeah, when your shit's hitting when the shit's hitting the ceiling or the shit's hitting the fan, what if you
Oh, that's the way,
number
fan,
one,
sorry.
the shit hitting the ceiling or shit hitting the fan, whatever it is. What if you like, okay, if I could put it into 3 easy steps. Gratitude is a practice. Like you have to practice being grateful. I'm not saying I have this all right. Absolutely not. I still am practicing. Like you heard the story of the coffee. Like I still practice being grateful, but the more you practice it, the more you be it. So
Yeah,
number one is take a step, not take a step back, but take a step around and just look at what's going on right now, whatever that one thing it is for you, that quote unquote problem, and really look at it and say, okay, what's actually going on here that I'm not acknowledging? And then
yeah,
ask yourself, is this a problem or a possibility? Because if I'm looking at it, if it's a problem, I'm only ever going to see the problems with it. But what possibility is actually here that I'm just not looking at? All you have to do is
yeah,
take that step away and look at it from a different angle. Step three, what can I be grateful for with this? Even if it's like you almost have to force yourself a little bit, like in this practicing thing, like what can you be
yeah,
grateful for with this specific thing? Okay, say now you're having a terrible walk and it's all hot and whatever, but then you take a step like, wow, I could be really grateful for the scenery that I'm around. Because it's a practice.
yeah,
Your default is in gratitude, therefore you have to practice being it.
yeah. I like that. Yep,
Yes.
giving everyone a moment to be grateful for what they have, what they have chosen,
And one of the
what
tips
they've
actually from
created.
the PU Changing the World book written by Dr. Dane here is starting a gratitude journal. And maybe every day or every second day or however how frequently works for you. What if you just write down like 5 to 10 things you're grateful for?
Yeah, including those that you don't think you're grateful for, or you can never be grateful for. What's the one thing you can be grateful for them as well?
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
even like with your parents, the whole like grateful for them, even if you had a fucked up childhood, look at how it has shaped you as a person today and what gifts you receive from that. Be grateful for it.
oh yes, yeah, and that makes you realize, doesn't it, that you've sort of chosen whatever you've chosen to get to wherever you are today.
Yeah.
Like if I look at like these random things that I might have chosen, or the stuff that got created by by uh it's interesting how all of that has contributed to what I can ask for and be today, which is so cool. It's a little hard to or sometimes see that, but the moment you start seeing it from the space of the gratitude.
And that's so cool that you say that, because I think Dane also once said that gratitude and judgment can't exist together.
Can't exist. Yep.
So if you're having
Yeah.
gratitude, like you're literally erasing all the judgment. But if you have judgment, you're also erasing all the gratitude. So have a look at what you choose. Yeah.
That's so interesting, because suddenly you, like, the moment you start stepping into that, like suddenly you'll start seeing someone smile that you weren't seeing before, that just brings that extra spark in them, or you start noticing like a flower that's always been there, but it's like suddenly blooming and going high, and you just like, it just creates more engagement and more of you and more presence in the world, which is very different space to be creating from. I've seen that change so much in my life. I used to be someone who used to, if I was flying or traveling, I would be like, I hope there's no one sitting next to me. Let me get an empty seat. Like the least amount of engagement or interest in things around, and the more you're willing to have gratitude, the more you. It's so interesting that engagement actually brings us more alive, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm getting a few aha moments while chatting.
Me too. I'm even looking at like, what else can I be grateful for that I haven't been grateful for? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So, is there anything that, if there's any one thing that you would like to leave everyone with, what would it be? That it ooze into their world?
I think like the bigger conversation we've been having about gratitude and looking at like all the things and people and places and spaces we can be grateful for. What if like the one thing at the top of your list to be grateful for was you? And if that's one thing I want to like leave everyone with, who you're listening to this in the future, is like, what if even just being like, if you could choose anything to be grateful for today, what if it was you?
I like that. Ooh, I want to say that the meme that Christopher shared says, I'm gonna treat myself. Me, who has rarely, if ever, denied myself anything.
I love that. Yeah. I'm gonna treat myself.
Treat myself, me. Never ever denied myself anything.
Yeah.
I love that. Yes. Thank you so much for coming on and for this conversation. And I know you have a bunch of classes coming up. If someone wants to find you with Eve, where would they?
I guess the best place to find everything, if you're looking for something upcoming with me, is www.wesleypullen.com.
Cool. And we will share the link as well in the description. And do you have a money class coming up?
Yes. So I have no idea when this is being launched. So,
oh yeah. Yes. See, I'm new to this. So podcasting. I'm just thinking that, like, I'm like, okay, we'll have to make sure that this comes out before. Do we have some time?
Well, maybe if you're catching this afterwards, you can message me on whatever platform and find out if you can get the replay. But on the 23rd of February, myself and an amazing friend of mine, Paula Peralta, we're doing a class together called Who Wants to Be a Billionaire? So
me!
It'll be so much fun. Yes, me too. Let's all become billionaires so we can change the world faster. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I'm in.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I hope I get invited again.
You think? Yes. Thank you for coming on. And
All
thanks
right.
everyone for tuning in if you did. And here's to more.
Yes, here's tomorrow. What else is possible?